Hello, it's Andrew from Burncoose Nurseries, and today I'm going to tell you a little bit of my knowledge about the Anemone decane. The Anemone decane, a popular cut flower in Cornwall from the 50s and 60s. Not so much now. More of a flower that you would see growing in a garden, that you could get from bulb wholesalers and retailers across the country. The corm of the Anemone decane looks like this, looks like a piece of gravel. It's dry and it's a winter flowering plant, so it needs cool weather to germinate and to grow, and it doesn't like the hot, dry weathers in the summer, so it's a winter growing flower. The decane anemone was a popular flower grown by farmers' wives throughout Cornwall because of its mild climate in the 60s, 70s and 80s. And many farms had 5,000 to 10,000, maybe 20,000 anemones planted every year, where the farmer's wife would go out and pick the flowers, bunch them up, and the following day take them to the local train station, where they would then ferry them up to Covent Garden for sale on the open market. Cornwall's ideal place because it's quite mild for growing these anemones, and the experimental station, which was based at Rosewarne, grew a strain. I think it was created by a person called Gill, and that was called the St Piran strain of the anemone. And the anemone St Piran was supposed to be more frost hardy and also have better disease resistance. When it moved from the experimental station into the educational facility, Duchy College, they continued breeding the strain, or keeping the strain St Piran going. At the same time, across Europe, we've had other growers which would refine the anemone cut flower, and you had places in France called Compitor which would grow anemones. You had places in Israel which would also breed anemones to improve the strain, and also places in Italy which would also do it. France and Italy, they grew them on the French Riviera and the Italian Riviera, again coastal areas very much like Cornwall, and also warm, maybe even warmer. One particular variety that was grown in France by a company called Compitor is the anemone cut flower Marianne, and if you've seen these, you may have seen them in florist shops. They're a very tall and very strong anemone cut flower with a stem reaching to 40 to 50 centimeters in length. Also have great potential in production, where you could get 10 or 15 stems per corm. Then if you go over to Israel, they also big in breeding anemones and have done for a very long time, and they would have bred over the years varieties such as Rainbow, which were the very popular bicolour ones, Meron, which is a very popular one for cut flower because it has very strong and thick stems. Galilee is another one which is quite popular, and the one most recently on the market is a double anemone, very similar to St Bridget, for those of you who remember St Bridget as a summer flowering one, but this one is called Full Star. So these are how the French and the Israelis have bred from this anemone to make a very excellent cut flower. But I think we'll find, or I certainly find, that the best anemone cut flower is grown by a company in Italy called Biancheri Creations, and they've grown the strain called Mistral, and it has many great attributes of a cut flower: strong, tall stems, very pastel type colours, and also true colours, as in the blues and the pinks and the whites, which we are very familiar with the anemone of old. And in my opinion, the Mistral anemone is the anemone to get moving forward. Many years ago, when I was working on the farm, the farmer was very kind. He let me grow 10,000 acres in the corner of a field. I grew the decane ones like this, and I grew enough to buy myself a Citroen Visa at £660, and that was back in 1991. So as we think about the anemone decane, or I do, I wonder what would happen if we had been more encouraged to market the St Piran strain of anemones, which sadly is almost out of existence now because of the lack of people wanting to continue to grow that strain, and perhaps in some way we've been left behind by the Italians and the French when it comes to the growing of a decent strain of cut flower anemones.